Hey everyone, welcome again to More Layers. I'm Seth Mariano.
And I'm Jordan Smith, and we do thank you for your patience because if you were here last week, you know that our original plan for that episode was to go through the first three seasons of SpongeBob and the first movie, because that was considered the golden age, and the first movie is where it was considered originally to stop. Like, that was supposed to be the series finale. But then when we went with our plan to go through each individual episode, it took a lot longer than we expected. So ended up what we ended up doing was doing last week just season one, and now this week at the very least we're going to try and tackle the entirety of season two. So that's our plan for today. And also, if you hear a bit of rumbling in the background every once in a while, there's a bit of a thunderstorm in our area, so that's something we can't really control.
Yeah, and there was a bit of, don't know how applicable it is to our specific area, but there has been, I've seen like a twister warning, talk of thunder. There was some intense thunder and lightning just this morning. I remember I was up early in the morning and not taking the bathroom, saw a intense flash of lightning and some loud thunder, and it's expected to be fairly rainy as the week continues, but it is what it is.
Yeah, so we'll do our best to get through at least season two, and again, apologies for any background rumbling sounds you may hear. But we're going to jump right into it with our first episode of season two, that being Your Shoes Untied. This not only marks the start of the second season, but I believe it was the first episode they did that was animated digitally. Because I believe the entirety of the first season was animated with hand-drawn animation.
Yeah, I don't really know about that, but I guess it's not too surprising since first season started in 1999, turn of the century. Computer technology I think was starting to really advance. Computer animation was becoming prevalent, so
Sure. But as the title of the episode kind of implies, it centers around SpongeBob after he realizes he can't tie his shoes. He's originally trying to show Patrick, but then when he tries to do it himself, he's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So he tries to go through his everyday life with his shoes still untied, and he's constantly face planting as he goes to work. And then, normally, when he's at the Krusty Krab, the stove is right by the window, so he can immediately just deliver the order to Squidward. But for the sake of comedy in this episode, it was placed on the opposite side of the room. Because when he goes to deliver the sandwich, he decides, you know what, I'm going to put my feet in the floor, or like scoot very slowly forward, and when he thinks he's got it, he's barely moved at all.
yeah, it's kind of like there's this like moment. He's you think he's coming over, to get the Krabby Patty to Squidward, but you can make the argument that he's stalling. He's not really going anywhere, but it's a pretty goofy moment.
And there were so many memes, as we've brushed on before, especially from these earlier seasons. And there's one that has often been used that comes from this one, where Squidward asks where the order is. SpongeBob goes, "Did you check under the tray?" And in a brief moment where he's not really thinking, Squidward's like, "Oh, no, sorry, wait. So, yeah, definitely a bunch of hilarity in there. And then the episode ends with another song added to the SpongeBob library. Honestly, it's kind of catchy. I don't really think about it too much. But if I were younger and I didn't actually know how to tie my shoes, I feel like this song could actually help.
Sure.
And then part 2 of episode 1, if you will, is Squid's Day Off, where Mr. Krabs puts Squidward in charge for a whole workday. And throughout the episode, Squidward takes advantage of this and decides to have SpongeBob basically do everything, while he goes to run some errands when he's actually just sitting at home doing nothing. But as the episode progresses, he gets more and more paranoid that SpongeBob is going to do something absolutely terrible, destroy the restaurant, or something to that effect. So he keeps running back and forth every time he thinks of a way for things to go wrong. And of course, each time he shows up, SpongeBob says the famous line, "Have you finished those errands?"
Right. Yeah, in a way it's kind of a sort of like maybe extreme exaggerated example of someone with a very hysterical anxiety, and in a way kind of like what they did with Pickles in a way, except this is probably more extreme paranoid, like super stressed case.
For sure. And when watching this episode, you'll see that they don't have any customers all day. So you think it's just a slow day, but at the very end of the episode, they reveal the sign was never flipped to say open instead of closed. So SpongeBob's like, it's good. It's like we could have taken the whole day off. And then Squidward just literally deflates, and that's how the episode ends. And then we jump to Season 2, Episode 2, and again, for those that may be confused, while each episode is listed as an episode, there's technically 2 stories. But part 1 of Episode 2 is Something Smells. And in this one, it's Sunday, so SpongeBob decides he's going to eat a sundae. Problem is, he doesn't have much to work with, so he just mushes a bunch of random stuff together, and it ends up being very foul in terms of smell. And then he goes out in public, people are starting to run away from him, and he wonders why. Patrick just appears to be a giant piece of bubblegum on a bench, but then he shows up, and Patrick suggests that maybe people are running because they think SpongeBob is ugly.
Yeah, which leads to the seemingly immortalized moment of the ugly barnacle story that ends as quickly as it begins.
That arguably is one of the most well-known scenes in the entire show, just because of how ridiculous it is. It doesn't really make any sense, but it's not supposed to. And it's very short, very to the point. He doesn't drag it out. It is so funny. But it also leads to a later moment that I often at least reference to some degree with friends, where Patrick crashes out in front of an entire movie theater, holds SpongeBob up, and he's like, "Look at it! It's ugly, isn't it? You look at it!" And it causes everybody to leave, and then eventually Patrick eats some of the sundae that SpongeBob apparently had. So the same thing starts happening to him. He thinks he's ugly. And then, through SpongeBob being subjected to the smell through Patrick, he then finally realizes it's just because they smell really bad.
Yeah. And there's a fun little, I've talked a bit about this in our last episode, the adult or grown-up culture references. In this case, there's a slight reference to the Commodore's Easy Like Sunday Morning, where SpongeBob literally says, "I'm easy like Sunday morning."
Oh.
Yeah. I mean,
I didn't realize that was a reference.
or I don't know if if like the phrase like outdates the song or something, but I feel like there's at least the connection to that song, Lionel Richie and the Commodores.
And honestly, that's a reference I can appreciate, because a lot of times when a film or a TV series makes references to something else, it is blatantly obvious. But it's often appreciated when they have more subtle references, because then the people who do catch it feel kind of rewarded when they're like, hey, I recognize that.
Yeah.
And then, part 2 of Season 2, Episode 2, is Bossy Boots. Not to be confused with Squeaky Boots from Episode 1.
No.
But in this episode, Mr. Krabs brings Pearl into the workplace, and she ends up taking way too much control. And while SpongeBob is kind of behind it for a while, Squidward is immediately against the whole idea.
Yeah. Pearl basically takes it into this, like, takes the Krusty Krab and changes it into this, for lack of a better word, stereotypical chick hangout spot, pretty much.
And to Mr. Krabs' credit, despite his usual cheapness, he is doing whatever he can to support his daughter. But then once he realizes that everything's really going downhill for him, he is like, okay, we gotta get her out of here. This is becoming too much. He does end up having SpongeBob do it, but she ends up wanting to be fired. So it all works out for pretty much everyone, really. So everything goes back to the way it was. Pearl goes off and does her own thing. And it ends with SpongeBob deciding to purchase everything that was at the Krusty Krab from Mr. Krabs. And I forget exactly how much he said he spent. It was like a year's salary or something like that.
Yeah, that's what he said, like a year's wages.
And of course, Gary doesn't necessarily like it, but for the most part, in this episode, everybody wins.
Yeah. Well, at least Mr. Krabs kind of gets his reimbursement for all the expensive gear that that was bought for this disaster, and it's pretty relieving. You know, you have a tense moment like when SpongeBob is faced with the difficult situation of having to tell Pearl she's fired, and then the tension is pretty quickly broken when it's revealed, or Pearl reveals, that she's not really into this job and she never really was to begin with.
Yeah, she explains to SpongeBob during that sequence that she mostly just wanted to please her father, who wanted to bring her into the family business, so...
Yeah.
But, her being a teenager and still young, wanting to live life, she wasn't really having it, so...
Yeah.
She at least attempted.
Yeah.
But then we jump into episode 3, part 1, is a very well-known episode, Big Pink Loser, and it's very likely due to one particular scene, which we'll get to. But in this episode, the whole premise is that Patrick is just trying to win an award for doing basically anything. Because he points out, I've never won an award because I've never done anything.
Yeah, and SpongeBob, by this point, has won who knows how many awards for, like, who knows, could be ridiculous stuff that really that really doesn't probably call for awarding anyway. But the great thing about this episode is that it's like when Patrick is at the center of it, I feel like it's especially comedy gold. You can just see him see his dim-witted, not very bright personality trying to master what should be the simplest skills, but he's for the most part clueless, and he's frustrated and really, really confused.
Yeah, and after they discover his SpongeBob's award closet, SpongeBob starts to motivate him So he tries to get Patrick to think what he could do to win an award, leading to probably one of the most out of left field lines from Patrick in the earlier seasons, where he just goes, "I want to defeat the giant monkey man and save the ninth dimension." It's one of those lines that I occasionally forget exists, but then when I do hear it again, or think of it again, I just remember how much I love it. And of course, SpongeBob thinks that's a little too big, so he wants him to think smaller, which eventually leads to him working at the Krusty Krab. He tries a couple things and it doesn't work, and then we get to a very famous scene in the SpongeBob show, where all Patrick has to do is answer the phone, and he responds with another very well-known line, "No, this is Patrick."
Yeah. The iconic, "No, this is Patrick."
And that's been edited with a bunch of other things before. Probably one of the ones I've seen the most is when it's edited into the movie 300, where it's like, "This is blasphemy. No, this is Patrick. This is madness. No, this is Patrick. This is Sparta. No, this is Patrick." And as he slams the phone down, it cuts to the guy being kicked into a pit.
Right.
But no, the whole "No, this is Patrick" scene is very popular, very well known, and for good reason. Because it's one. The best way I can put it is it's one of those many moments where it's brief and to the point, and it's said just enough to the point where it's not obnoxious.
Right.
And it gets more intense every time until he just has it. Like he's lost it completely. Then he tries a couple more things, and eventually they go to the back of the restaurant where SpongeBob simply tries to get him to open a jar.
And it takes a while of struggling, but soon enough he gets it.
Yeah, he does. He first has to get a jar. First holds up a pickle. It's like, "Patrick, that's a pickle." "Yes. You need a jar." So he picks up several other things until SpongeBob just gives him one. And he tries to put his hand on the lid several times, still doesn't get there. But eventually, he does get it. And when he finally opens the lid, he celebrates. And then the next day he thinks, if I dress and act like SpongeBob, I'll get a bunch of other awards. And it quickly gets on SpongeBob's nerves.
Yeah, this just shows how not very bright Patrick is. He'll go to the to a point where he'll even if it's a mistake, and it should be obvious it's a mistake, he'll mimic that too. Like when SpongeBob slips on the floor, or when SpongeBob starts to get wise, he thinks to himself, I'm going to put my hand on the burning stove and see if Patrick is dumb enough to copy that. And apparently he is, and he does it.
Now, granted, SpongeBob is using a fake hand in that instance, as it's revealed a few seconds later.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, Patrick literally copies everything SpongeBob says and does that whole day, at least for a while. And then eventually, when SpongeBob tries to imitate him, Patrick is like, "I've never been closer to an award than the minute I started copying you." Then after he rants one more time, a delivery truck shows up, puts an award in SpongeBob's mouth at first, but then it's revealed that it was an award for Patrick because he did nothing longer than anybody else.
Shows you can get more than an E for effort.
Or the lack thereof in this case. But yeah, a lot of popular moments in this episode that people will come back to. And the same can be said, at least to some degree, for the following episode, Bubble Buddy, where Patrick is away for a while, so SpongeBob tries to find somebody to play with while he's gone, and he eventually makes one out of a bubble.
Yeah. Sandy's gone to Squidward. I don't know if he's gone or not, but he is not interested in playing at least. So SpongeBob's kind of left on his own.
Each character that he tries to interact with has a sign outside their door
Yeah.
saying where they are. But when SpongeBob is just like, Squidward, do you want to play? Squidward simply has a sign on the door that says no. He's like, are you sure? Yes.
Yeah. So clearly Squidward knows SpongeBob's patterns. It's like, oh, he's gonna bug me again. I'm gonna tell him straight and get it over with.
And he doesn't even have to interact with him directly.
Right.
So SpongeBob blows this bubble, and he takes him everywhere. Except the way he's going about it is frustrating everybody. Like when he goes to the Krusty Krab, he pays with bubble money, which of course is not legit. He goes to the beach with him, where Bubble Buddy is in the bathroom for, I forget what somebody else online said. It was like 2, maybe 3 hours, something like that.
2 hours, yeah. 2 hours is long enough. That's it.
Of course, the guy opens the door. SpongeBob just casually walks away, not seeing how that could have been a problem. Although I do got to give props to the other people online for waiting that long before taking action.
Oh, man.
And then, at that point, pretty much the entire town, or at least the people in the area, have had absolutely enough. And then they all go through these various things that Bubble Buddy supposedly did. Except one guy was like, he poisoned our water supply, burned our crops, and destroyed all our houses. He did? No, but are we going to wait until he does? So they all go to try and pop the bubble, but then completely out of nowhere, the bubble starts moving and speaking independently, catching one of the needles before it gets him. And then he's like, this town is too crazy, SpongeBob, I'm out of here. So he gets into a bubble car, floats away, and everybody's just like, oh, wow, so that happened. They leave. A bubble, completely unrelated, floats next to Squidward, and he doesn't know what to do. So he's just like, hi?
Yeah. And to kind of describe what Bubble Buddy looks like, kind of, it's sort of a bubble with a sort of person-like body. It's, thinking back, kind of reminded me of, if you ever saw Flubber, the Disney film with Robin Williams. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah, kind of the sort of slimy green thing. It like would grow legs and stuff. So
Yeah, that's honestly a really good description.
yeah.
And then we jump to, according to IMDb, another one of their top-rated episodes, where part 1 is Dying for Pie. I mentioned last week that because we didn't have cable growing up, I had a VHS that had like 5 episodes on it. Dying for Pie was one of them. And in this episode, Mr. Krabs says that it's Employee Brotherhood Day at the Krusty Krab, so they each have to give each other a gift, meaning SpongeBob and Squidward. SpongeBob tries to make him a sweater that does not end up working out because it's made of eyelashes, so Squidward throws it right back at him. SpongeBob makes another one out of tears a few seconds later. It still doesn't work. So just to try and get out of doing it, Squidward ends up buying a pie, not realizing it's actually an explosive.
And then and then within like the next few minutes, a crumb of it drops, and then there's this big explosion in Mr. Krabs' office or something.
Yeah, and then when Mr. Krabs and Squidward both realize what they have in their possession, they try to explain it, and then they realize that it's still in the restaurant, And then they think, based on how SpongeBob acts, they think he ate it. So they now believe that by the end of the day, he's going to be gone because of a big explosion. So out of complete guilt, Squidward decides to give him his best day ever, essentially, by doing everything SpongeBob wants to do.
Yeah, it's really good how the writers lead us to believe that SpongeBob actually ate the pie, and they give us every reason not to even think of questioning or guessing that maybe he didn't eat it, but we'll find out later that he didn't.
Yeah, they even go as far as having him belch soon before the explosion is supposedly going to happen, and then describing the smell as something you would see in a pie. And then they see the sunset, and he doesn't even question why Squidward built a brick wall in between the two of them. He just thinks it's like, oh, it's another friend.
Yeah.
So the sun sets, Squidward hears an explosion, so he thinks it's happened. But it turns out that SpongeBob on the other side of the wall is just blowing bubble bombs. And of course, that leads to Squidward realizing through SpongeBob's reveal that he had the pie in his pocket the entire time. And then when he finally goes to share it with Squidward, they're finally going to eat it, he trips and lands on Squidward's face, leading to a clip of an explosion that has been used everywhere. A lot of times in fan-made stuff. In fact, I've used it a couple times. Like, I made this edit of a scene from Bug's Life where Hopper goes to punch his brother out of frustration, but the moment he lets his fist fly, I cut that explosion in to make it look like he punched him so hard there was an explosion. But apparently, they didn't really have much to worry about with this explosion, because after it fades out, you just hear Squidward go, ouch. So it was painful, but it wasn't fatal.
Yeah, apparently not.
Yeah, and then episode 4, Imitation Crabs, or episode 4, part 2. In this episode, it's another one of Plankton's schemes, except this time he decides he's going to make a robot copy of Mr. Krabs to try and get the formula that way. And for a little while, it seems to start working as he sends Squidward home, so SpongeBob's the only one in his way. But SpongeBob, for one reason or another, keeps stalling and stalling, driving him crazy. And it lasts long enough to the point where the real Mr. Krabs shows up, and he starts quizzing them to see which one is supposedly the real one.
Yeah, this is probably the first of at least a couple situations in which Plankton kind of disguises himself as another character. The specific other example that came to mind was Someone's in the Kitchen with Sandy, where he pretty much takes Sandy's fur and hides in that. And, yeah, it's one of a couple of pretty clever, if not entirely stupid, attempts by Plankton to get his hands on the formula by pretending to be somebody else.
And so after SpongeBob quizzes the both of them, he thinks he found the real one, but then he finds a penny on the ground, puts it in a slot on the front of the fake Krabs armor, exoskeleton, whatever you want to call it. And it turns out that slot is a coin-operated self-destruct sequence. And to which Plankton is like, coin-operated self-destruct? Not one of my better ideas. And he just runs off before the explosion happens. He blows up inside the suit, and the formula, which was in his hands, ends up rolling back towards SpongeBob. SpongeBob realizes what he's done, goes and gets the real Mr. Krabs before he's eaten.
Yeah, and this episode arguably proves that SpongeBob's naivete, however you say it, knows no bounds because it's obviously it's when you see the robot, it's obvious it's a robot. No expression, very no like fluid movement. He just for some reason is just so too easily fooled.
Yeah, he is technically an adult, at least age-wise, in the show, but he still very much thinks like a kid, which is addressed heavily in the first film, which we'll get to in the near future. But yeah, this was definitely a scene that showcased that.
Yeah.
Because even like actual kids in the audience could look at that and be like, okay, I know which one is the real one.
Yeah.
Then we get to episode 5, part 1 is Wormy. This one was also on that VHS I talked about. This is arguably an infamous one, all because of one specific clip. And it's after Wormy becomes a butterfly, and then every once in a while, when the townsfolk are getting scared of it, they do this weird close-up shot of the insect, which is paired with some buzzing sounds.
Yeah.
And I talked to a lot of people growing up saying they were terrified of that.
Yeah, of the stock live-action butterfly.
Well, some people were saying that the stock footage wasn't even a butterfly, but maybe I remember hearing that wrong. But the premise of this episode is that Sandy is heading out for a little while, so she leaves her pets in SpongeBob and Patrick's care for some reason. And the one they choose to focus on for this episode is Wormy, which starts out as, based on the name, you think it's a worm. But it turns out he's a caterpillar.
Yeah.
They have a lot of fun with him. They even have this short but memorable song that I wish was kind of longer.
Yeah.
Called That's What Friends Do. It's only 30, 45 seconds, but I feel like that could have easily been a 2-3 minute song.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they leave for the night, and somehow, in one night, that caterpillar goes from said caterpillar to cocooning to a butterfly, which they discover the next day, not realizing it's him. And they think this butterfly ate Wormy, along with other people, including Squidward and Mr. Krabs.
Yeah.
And in the process of trying to save the city, they end up destroying half of it.
Yeah. 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 And so they get like the local news involved. They get like all like the main cast involved. They get I take at one point Patrick is kind of dangling from an airborne SpongeBob, kind of like a hot air balloon, yelling into a megaphone, warning everybody. And there's a monster that's going to eat you.
And of course everybody's running. It kind of makes me think of when War of the Worlds first premiered on like a radio station and people thought it was legitimate, so they started panicking.
Oh yeah, the classic Orson Welles War of the Worlds radio broadcast. Yeah, I learned about that when I was a teenager.
And it's just an example of people hearing something and then blowing it completely out of proportion. Even the news, like how you were mentioning, they were like, a giant monster is attacking Bikini Bottom, when really he's like the size of a human hand, at best.
And it's just a butterfly with wings flapping on a tree. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but honestly, I've had pretty bad nerves. Yeah, even as a pretty grown person, when it comes to butterflies, because their wings flap so rapidly.
Sure.
And it seems like, well, whenever you're in contact with them, they do that. I don't know. I'm probably a bit more comfortable now, but I don't know if it's much changed. But
well, the funny thing is, for me, is that generally speaking, I am terrified of bugs.
Yeah.
especially ones that buzz when they fly.
Sure.
For some reason, butterflies are a rare exception.
Yeah.
Like, I could have them land on my shoulder, my face, my hand, or whatever the case may be. I've walked through butterfly gardens, and I was perfectly fine. But for some reason, practically every other insect, especially if it's something like, say, a beetle, a bee, a fly, or something to that effect, a stink bug, those things terrify me.
Yeah. Well, at least in the past, they used to freak me out, like butterflies or birds. Because their wings move so fast. But I don't know. I could probably, if I tried, I could endure it a little better. But
Yeah, they say a lot of times, especially with a fear such as one for insects, is that one way to, for lack of a better phrasing, get over it is by repeated exposure.
yeah,
And I sometimes have repeated exposure because the windows where I live, a couple of them have gaps just big enough to let bugs in occasionally, especially at the shifting of weather or seasons. So eventually, every once in a while, I'll get them inside my room, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to freak out. I'm just going to grab the vacuum and suck it up.
yeah,
So I think slowly it's getting better, but we'll see.
yeah. All right. Yeah.
And then part 2, we talked about that one for a while. Part 2 of episode 5 is Patty Hype. This is another Krusty Krab-ish based episode where SpongeBob comes up with the idea to sell Krabby Patties, except they're all in different colors. Because at that point, they need a gimmick to get customers back in there because they're not doing so hot. So he suggests that. He's pretty much laughed out of the restaurant, so he opens his own outside his house. And it leads to another favorite line of mine from Patrick, where he's just standing around and he's all angry for seemingly no reason. And it's like, Patrick, are you angry too?
Yeah,
What's the matter?
I can't see my forehead.
Right. Yeah. But with Patrick's assistance, he starts his own stand, offering his product, which he calls Pretty Patties. Basically, they're Krabby Patties, except with unique color, design, appearances, and yeah, it's certainly something you don't just see in this episode. We've seen it like in the real fast food world in real life. We saw it with the Burger King A1 Halloween burger. We've seen it probably in other places as well, and overnight it becomes a pretty big hit for SpongeBob.
And it seems too good to be true because he's gaining so many customers so fast that Mr. Krabs decides, we'll switch. You get the Krusty Krab and I'll take this. But shortly after he takes over, does it come to light the downside of these Pretty Patties? Because not only does it affect the color of the sandwich, but the color of those who eat it. Like the first guy reveals that his face turned purple. There's a Scottish guy whose legs turn plaid because he ended up eating a plaid-patterned patty. Isn't that alliteration? 3 people stick out their tongues. One of them seems fine, but then he pulls a random cord to realize that his tongue glows in the dark.
It's like he turns out a light that's not there, which makes it kind of funny.
Oh yeah, one of those classic cartoon gimmicks. And then he turns the light back on. Mr. Krabs tries to run. He goes to the Krusty Krab only to realize he doesn't have the key anymore because he gave it to SpongeBob. So he just keeps on running. And I think that's basically how the episode ends. Like, he doesn't actually get back in.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's definitely one that I remember. It's probably not like the most popular one, but it has a special place for me, mostly because of the "I can't see my forehead" line.
Yeah.
Then episode 6, part 1, Grandma's Kisses, which I believe is the first episode that featured SpongeBob's grandmother.
Yeah. Voiced by Marion Ross, probably best known for her role on the sitcom Happy Days.
Yep, Happy Days, this show. There was at least one other one that I was thinking of. I can't remember now what it was. But the idea for this episode is that she kisses SpongeBob in a public area where people can see it. And pretty much for the entire episode after that, everybody's making fun of him. So he tries to look and act more like an adult so that doesn't happen. But his grandmother kind of subtly teaches him that it's okay for him to be a kid and be treated like one, much to the amusement of everybody else.
It's kind of like if you've watched the animated series Arthur, which I think a lot of our generation did. Or the titular character has this constant anxiety about his public reputation amongst his peers, like being seen by his peers as a kid or as immature or as a baby. That's kind of the anxiety that SpongeBob is kind of experiencing in this story.
Yeah, and I think there was another cartoon show. I think it was the Berenstain Bears.
Yeah.
That also had an episode where one of the characters did something like that. And the lesson is pretty much the same. It's like, if you grow up too fast, you're going to miss out on your younger years. So live in the moment, enjoy the younger years, and have some fun while you're able to. Because that's not always going to be possible when you get older. And then part 2 of episode 6 is Squidville, which has probably a very relatable sequence for me, and we'll get to that in a moment. But this is another attempt of Squidward leaving Bikini Bottom entirely. But unlike in season 1, where he almost got there by trying to sell his house.
Opposite day.
Yep, that's the one. In this episode, he's actually successful. And he moves into a village full of people that are practically, outside of appearance, just like him. Which at first, he seems to really love. Except, like with how some things are in real life, he's doing the same thing day after day, and through this quick montage, you can see his face quickly morphing from like having the best time of his life to just getting duller and duller and duller until he is just bored out of his mind. And in kind of a weird twist, he ends up becoming the SpongeBob of that village, if you will.
Yeah.
Where he becomes the loud, obnoxious, goofy one.
Yeah, it is kind of, sort of the sort of grass is always greener, or is it sort of story. He's excited at first, not to get away from the annoying behaviors of his neighbors, but it turns out to be too much perfect, too much like him, all the activities he's interested in, and people who are like him. It's just not really that exciting for him.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, SpongeBob and Patrick, they try to go find him. They do track him down to this village. At first, they can't get in, but through Patrick's breath after eating fried oyster skins, he knocks out one of the guards, who then accidentally opens the door. They go in, and they try to find him, and Patrick questions a fire hydrant if he's the real Squidward. He's like,
That's okay, take your time.
and when they do actually find him, they're like, well, it's not that guy. But I think that was also one of the few episodes that brings back the reef blowers that were featured in the second episode of the series. And then, two big episodes coming up in episode 7. Part 1 is pre-hibernation week. Now, in another episode where we will actually get to, when we get to episode 9, where she does hibernate, in this episode, it's the week before, and she tries to do a bunch of things with SpongeBob that are very risky, dangerous, if not deadly. SpongeBob tries to go along with it because he doesn't want her to feel like he's rejecting her, but eventually he just can't take it.
And so he eventually just runs off and hides.
Yeah, and she tries to go find him, and one guy tries to morph one of the other citizens into a SpongeBob shape, and he goes, I'm ready, I'm ready. No, you ain't.
Yeah. They're really getting like stressed out. They don't want to do this. They're just desperately trying to get out of it.
Oh yeah, and as an example, one of the things she does is do a flip of the finding a needle in a haystack, where she tries to find a piece of hay in a stack of needles. And I can only imagine how much I'd be screaming in pain if I even got close to attempting that.
Oh yeah. Needles, not the best feeling,
No,
I mean,
absolutely not.
I mean, no matter how much I get used to them, it seems like I have to really think about it for a while and really put more effort into relaxing. Yeah, if I gotta get a vaccination, I gotta get a blood test. I have to think about, well, man, this is gonna hurt. I mean, I'm more used to it now. I'm more at ease with it, but it's still not 100% a good feeling, though.
Yeah, I will admit I'm pretty squeamish with needles, so I can definitely relate to that. And then, of course, the episode ends with, I think, Patrick's only line in the entire episode, where he comes home to his rock where a bunch of people were hiding, sees their eyes, and he's just like,
Who are you people?
Then episode 8 is actually just one episode, but it's a special, and I think it's like the first special episode, and it's the one that introduces Patchy the Pirate, who also is played by Tom Kenny, who voices SpongeBob. And it tells the story of SpongeBob's first Christmas. Because Sandy knew what it was, but nobody else in Bikini Bottom did. So she tells SpongeBob, who then tells the town, and they all get into the Christmas spirit, aside from Squidward. So they all start writing letters, and it leads to a hilarious scene where, I think I have the quote correct, but we'll see, where Squidward shows up, SpongeBob asks what his wish is, and Squidward goes, My wish is that the citizens of Bikini Bottom would stop paying attention to the inane dribble that is constantly streaming out of this dunderhead's mouth. Which is a bunch of complicated words, and SpongeBob's just like, Gee, Squidward, maybe Santa will bring me a dictionary so I can understand what you just said. Probably one of the more popular roasts that SpongeBob accidentally gave Squidward from the earlier seasons. And it leads to, of course, a Christmas song, because you gotta have a Christmas song.
Sure.
And it's honestly a really good one, too. Like, every Christmas rolls around, I gotta sing that song at least a couple times. But one thing I always found interesting about the end of the song is that at this point, Squidward's still not in the spirit. And yet, if you listen very closely on the last line of the song, you can hear his voice. You can see him just kind of being all droll in the window, but you can still hear his voice singing the song if you listen very carefully. And of course, Squidward, still not in the spirit. SpongeBob gives him a gift anyway, so he wouldn't feel left out, leading to a lot of people's favorite Squidward moment, where he feels so bad about how he treated SpongeBob that he decides that he's going to dress up as Santa to cheer him up. And then, while it works out at first, everybody starts believing that he's Santa. So they all ask him for things, and he ends up giving away everything he owns, which is acknowledged by the actual Santa.
Now, it's probably, to some viewers, it may seem cheap to get like the voice actor for SpongeBob to play like Patchy the Pirate, but it actually kind of like makes sense the more you know about Tom Kenny's career. He actually had some experience. I think like prior to acting in animation, he did some stand-up comedy, and I've heard a bit of his material, and so he had that sort of background, that sort of experience with, I think, stage or camera presence that made it a logical choice.
Yeah, and it is kind of amusing in a way how the president of the SpongeBob fan club is technically SpongeBob.
Yeah.
And then...
And there is one other episode, I think was paired with Pre-Hibernation Week, Life of Crime, I believe.
Oh yeah, we did skip over that one. My apologies.
Yeah, no problem.
In this episode, it's Free Balloon Day, which SpongeBob and Patrick did not realize until the end of the episode, but again, we'll get to that. They are at the Krusty Krab, and Mr. Krabs, trying to worm his way out of an awkward situation, explains how borrowing something supposedly works. So they take that to heart, and they find a balloon, and they end up, because they have no money with them, decide to borrow it, and it pops, which leads to them panicking, thinking they've now technically stolen it, so they now have to live a life on the run. And as they do run off, Patrick is painting a big red line, literally covering their tracks, which isn't very practical, but it's good for a nice visual gag. And after they do find themselves out in the open wilderness, they set up a fire. And this is one of the few times where they acknowledge that there shouldn't be a fire underwater.
Yeah.
But of course, the moment they acknowledge it, the fire goes out.
Right.
And then they are going to try and be optimistic about it. And it leads to a moment that I like, where they realize all the stuff they can do now. And Patrick's like, and we can fly! SpongeBob jumps, falls off a cliff, and he goes, okay, we still can't do that. Eventually it leads to probably the most popular moment in the episode, where SpongeBob pulls out a couple of chocolate bars. Patrick immediately eats his, but then as quickly forgets that he ate it, so he tries to eat it again, realizing that it's now missing. So he starts searching for it. He sees the one in SpongeBob's hands, believing it's his, and it leads to probably the most used line in the episode.
You took my only food. Now I'm gonna starve.
And as he says that, the camera slowly pans down to show that he's indeed not going to starve.
No, because he already ate his chocolate.
Yeah, he already ate his chocolate, and it looks like he's eaten a lot more recently. So he's probably set for a while. But it leads to a few more antics. They both run to the cops trying to get the other person in trouble. And then they just both kind of rat themselves out, saying, we both stole a balloon. And the cops probably because it was a slow night, they decided to kind of have some fun with them for a moment. They do put him in a prison cell all for about 5 seconds. It's like, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. Okay, time's up. Now get out. And then the cops revealed to them that it was Free Balloon Day. And the cops give them both a lollipop to take home with them. And yet, Patrick once again eats his immediately, not realizing that he did it. And it looks like he's at first kind of jokingly going along with it this time. Because he laughs along, and then right as the episode ends, he's like, I mean it.
Yeah. Yeah, the first time he said, like, who stole my lollipop? The first time I heard that, I was kind of thinking, I was thinking, like, something like, oh, not again, or dude, you ate it, man.
It's like, oh, it's one of those, oh, here we go again moments.
Yeah.
But now that we have covered that one, so now we move on to episode 9. Part 1 being Survival of the Idiots.
Yeah.
Where pre-hibernation we covered the week leading up to hibernation. This episode covers when Sandy actually does go into hibernation. And she even has a video set up to tell people, especially SpongeBob, to not disturb her while she's doing this. But of course they quickly disregard that and go inside. But then, when they try to leave, they can't. They're stuck inside. So because they're so cold that, as Patrick says twice,
I'm shivering.
They then go up to Sandy's tree and realize that it's her fur that's keeping her warm, so they take all of it. And they do this whole role-playing thing with the Dirty Dan and Pinhead Larry, which he was dreaming about. And one thing that I never fully got, maybe it's just a visual gag, is when SpongeBob calls Patrick Pinhead, he does say,
Who you calling Pinhead?
but he's got this semi-realistic face. I don't know if that's supposed to be a reference to something, but I never got it.
I don't know. To me, it kind of looks like the animated characters Beavis and Butthead a little bit.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
That could be what they're referencing.
I've seen the characters. I've seen, like, maybe clips. I never really watched the show itself, but I've seen what they look like.
Okay, yeah. Like, I definitely know what they look like, and now that you've said that, I can definitely make the comparison. Whether it was intentional or not is another story, but hey.
And this is probably one of the darkest episodes because a lot of the time, when the two, SpongeBob and Patrick, are kind of sneaking around, Sandy is not her usual appearance. She's like this giant, thick fur covered beast-looking creature, visually speaking, and she's fast asleep, dreaming she's this Western hero, and then as they're removing her fur, she's like roaring like this very, very aggressive bear.
Yeah, she's kind of built like the Hulk, in a way. Like a very psychotic rabid Hulk, if you will. But eventually they do succeed in getting all of her fur, which they use to keep warm, but shortly after they succeed in doing that, suddenly it's springtime, all the snow melts. But the one thing that stays frozen for just long enough is the door, so they still can't leave, and just as they get to that point, Sandy shows up, sees them with the fur, and she freaks out. So when they try to worm their way out of it, she ends up wrapping them around her. And she's, of course, in high spirits, but they're definitely embarrassed. But then part 2, of episode 9 is dumped. And usually that's referring to like a romantic type relationship where one of them cuts it off. But in this case, it's Gary with SpongeBob, or at least that's what SpongeBob is led to believe.
Which is just just as big a deal to SpongeBob as it would be for a lover, boyfriend, girlfriend thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Because aside from Patrick, Gary is considered to be SpongeBob's closest companion. But then all of a sudden, Gary starts hanging out with Patrick a lot to the point where it seems like Patrick wants to stay with him instead of SpongeBob, leading to the moment where SpongeBob draws little faces on his fingers and is like, "The gang's all here."
And actually, that's a scene from Naughty Nautical Neighbors, actually.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I got them confused.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking of how he gets other pets.
Yeah, it's a similar situation. He's kind of at his lowest. He's kind of by himself in both cases. So yeah.
And eventually, Patrick comes over to do laundry, and Gary's still with him. So SpongeBob starts weeping, trying to think of any possible reason to get Gary back, any sort of sweetening the pot type of thing. And Patrick basically makes him give up, but as that happens, Gary sneaks into Patrick's pocket to reveal that the reason he was following him this whole time was because Patrick had a cookie that he hadn't been eating for whatever reason. And then once he eats it, he goes right back to being with SpongeBob. They walk away, and now Patrick is the one that feels dumped.
Yeah, the episode is, this story is more or less reminiscent of that old Peanuts movie, Snoopy Come Home, where Snoopy pretty much decides to kind of ditch Charlie Brown for his former owner, in a way. So,
yeah, it's very similar, for sure. But in both cases, the pet does come back.
Yeah, right.
And, of course, everybody's in much better spirits. It does, kind of going slightly off topic, I know we're kind of running short on time, but it always fascinated me how Lucy kind of missed Snoopy, because she always seemed to despise him. There was even a scene in that special, I believe, where she had a boxing match with him. But, yeah, just because we're approaching episode 10, we're probably going to wrap up after that and do part 2 of season 2 next time.
Yeah.
But part 1 of episode 10 is No Free Rides, where SpongeBob finally passes his driving test, but under less than legitimate circumstances. Because this is a point where he's failed it once again. In fact, I think this is not the only time necessarily, but the first time where the narrator is kind of directly involved in the episode in a way, because while SpongeBob is taking his test, SpongeBob literally runs right into him. Like, the narrator opens the episode out as he normally does, who's also voiced by Tom Kenny, by the way. And as SpongeBob approaches the camera, you think he's just going to pass right over, but no. You hear the narrator raise his voice and go, "If he does not pass this one, it means a whole nother year of boarding school!" And you see his feet going off screen afterwards, too, solidifying the fact that, yeah, the narrator is physically present. But Mrs. Puff realizes that this means she's about to spend another year with him, so she tries to find a way to weasel out of that by giving SpongeBob supposed extra credit. And all he has to do is write a 10-word essay, which of course is way too easy, and yet SpongeBob still struggles with it. And she eventually just throws up her hands and is like, "Forget it, you passed." So she gives him his license and she tries to not think much of it. And then, of course, immediately she realizes, wait, there's a new driver on the road, and imagines him just starting to run people over and destroying the town.
It's like her mind quickly goes to like the worst case scenario. And in this case, I think rightfully so because, he didn't technically earn the license, and she's pretty much. She pretty much knows that he is not necessarily qualified or ready to safely drive one of these boats, and so, well, naturally, she's imagining the worst.
Yeah, it's kind of like, not necessarily a callback, but it's like another version of that moment in Hall Monitor where she's like, what are the consequences for what I've just done? And at first, things seem to be going okay. Like, he's not necessarily driving much yet. But when she arrives home, SpongeBob is there with his parents to say thank you with a big cake and whatnot. And his parents gift him with a brand new boat. And she then panics because at first it's like, oh, it's not a big deal. He doesn't even have a boat. But now he does, and she's freaking out. So she first considers just skipping town and assuming a new identity. And she's like, nope, not again, implying that she's done this type of thing before.
No. And so she's desperate to, in her words, end this thing before it begins.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of just hides herself in kind of a burglar type uniform, and goes and kind of just takes the boat, drives off with it, not realizing that SpongeBob is in the back seat or something.
I think she ended up sitting on top of him because he decided to check on the boat, ends up falling asleep, and then he wakes up, sees her there, not realizing it's her at first. But as she tries to speed up and kind of shake him off, he's not letting go. He goes through being bitten to pieces by giant clams, going through random piles of cheese graters. But ultimately what gets him is a little educational television.
It's like maybe a kid's worst nightmare.
Oh yeah, for sure. But even what makes that moment even funnier to me is that even when you hear him screaming and getting further away, you can already see, if you watch closely, he's become the radio.
Yeah.
To which she turns on, and then he comes out, tackles her, and reveals that it's Mrs. Puff.
Yeah.
And it's another one of those episodes where Mrs. Puff, due to her
irresponsible actions.
I was about to try to find the right word, but irresponsible is a good one. She ends up back in prison, and SpongeBob tells her that she can get out early if she offers free driving lessons, which kind of ties into the title No Free Rides. But definitely a classic one. It's one that I've quoted before with family and friends, especially the whole educational television thing. And then our final episode that we'll cover today, because we're running short on time, is I'm Your Biggest Fanatic. And this episode I've referenced in other episodes of our show here because of one particular line, and we'll get to it. But this has SpongeBob and Patrick going to a jellyfishing-themed convention. And they find several relics or important jellyfishing items. And Patrick is touching all of them, much to a security guard's chagrin. It's like, wow, state-of-the-art jellyfish nets.
Touch.
Don't touch. Wow, the harpoon from Jellyfish the movie.
Touch.
Don't touch. And I don't know if Jellyfish the movie is kind of like their version of Jaws or Moby Dick or something like that. But the implication is there. And then they find a doctor who got stung by a giant jellyfish by the name of Big Lenny and survived. And he's just got this big, I don't know if it's like a wart or something to that effect. But it's like, and now it only hurts when you touch it. And of course, Patrick touches it.
And his name is, what? How do you say, Dr. Manowar?
Yeah, it's Dr. Manowar, which I believe is the name of an actual jellyfish.
I believe it's a reference to a legendary racehorse, Manowar, because I've heard of that.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I also did think Manowar was a type of jellyfish. I'll look that up in the near future, I'm sure. But then it leads to the main plot point of the movie where SpongeBob finds probably his jellyfishing hero. Kevin the Sea Cucumber, the leader of a group of jellyfishers known as the Jelly Spotters. And he quickly goes full fanboy on it, which leads to the line that I've talked about in previous episodes, because of the way Patrick says it, where he's just like,
What's so great about a nerdy pickle?
and then Patrick kind of stays out of the rest of the episode, for the most part, because it focuses on SpongeBob trying to become a jelly spotter. And Kevin tries to make it seem like he's just going through a few tests when all he's really doing is messing with him.
This is probably one of the most relatable stories in the series, because I feel like a lot of people, including myself, have, you get super close to someone you've admired, someone who's your hero, and you really desperately want to prove that you're worthy of their attention, worthy of their respect, affection, whatever. And that's pretty much kind of SpongeBob's situation in this one. I'm trying to prove he can be. He admires Kevin the Sea Cucumber so much. He is desperate to prove that he is just as cool, or at least he can become just as.
And he goes as far as jumping off a building at Kevin's kind of sarcastic request. And then when he sees how dedicated SpongeBob might actually be, he then goes, punch yourself in the face. And he actually does with a boxing glove. It's like, doesn't that hurt you? To which SpongeBob simply responds by pulling out a metallic spiked glove, saying, do you want it to hurt me, Kevin? And then they realize they can have some fun with this guy. So, as mentioned, they put him through several tests, only to try and torture him. And the anchovies, who don't speak much, like the anchovies are the rest of the jelly spotters, one of them on occasion would just go wah, wah, wah.
Which is probably my favorite part of the whole thing.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more, aside from the nerdy pickle line. Because it happens every time something bad happens to Kevin. Like, each time he tries to mess with SpongeBob, it somehow backfires. And eventually it's just like, wah, wah, wah. Will you cut that out? So then SpongeBob's supposed final test is to catch a queen jellyfish. And SpongeBob thinks he finds one, only to realize Kevin's piloting a fake queen jellyfish.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of like that scene in that one Arthur episode where like a few of the boys put together a fake alien ship to kind of mess with DW.
Oh, that's true. She thinks she's found a UFO when it was just some makeshift thing they put together, and then it falls to the ground. She realizes it's fake. They have their laugh.
Yeah.
Which Kevin and the Jelly Spotters do here, and they also reveal that the pit that SpongeBob is standing in front of has a bunch of Kevin's other biggest fans, which kind of implies that Kevin has done the same to these people, like he's done this type of thing before. And around that time, a legitimate king jellyfish shows up, freaking them out. So they all go hide. And when they think he's gone, it's like, one of you, go out and check. One of them does. And he's like, oh. Like, all he says is meat, but the implication is that he's saying, yeah, it's safe, come back out. He gets zapped and he's like, meat. But then SpongeBob, in his wisdom or skill or what do you want to call it, he took out his bubbles, blew up a giant bubble pie, like it was a pie-shaped bubble. But the king jellyfish thinks it's real, so he takes it and leaves. And the jelly spiders are thankful, they're admirable of what he just did. But Kevin is like, nope, you're still not a member. But at this point, the rest of the jelly spiders have had it, so they take the headpiece off and put it on SpongeBob. It's like, wow, I didn't know this was a hat. It wasn't. It implies that that was attached to him. So yeah, that would have hurt a lot. So then Patrick returns in the end of the episode. He's like, hey, did you get into that club? Yeah, but I turned it down. It's not about Kevin, it's about jellyfish. And Patrick is just like,
SpongeBob, I'm glad you learned your lesson.
and as he's saying hero worship is unhealthy, he shows that his own hero, Jeffrey Jellyfish, is now in a wagon that he caught him in and pulls him away. It's kind of a play on people saying never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I've had good experiences with that. And I've definitely gotten close to acting how SpongeBob does when he first meets Kevin. Because I think a reason for that is you're so used to seeing someone on a screen, or you're just used to hearing their voice, that when you see them in the flesh only a few feet away from you, it's so surreal that your mind has difficulty processing the fact that that's actually them.
Yeah, I don't know if I've had exactly that experience. I mean, there are people I see in like the local theater community, and I've gotten to know pretty well, and I'm pretty starstruck, and they're pretty pleasant to talk to.
Oh, sure.
And I. About a year ago, a little less than a year ago, me and a mutual friend of ours went to a Comic-Con and got to meet a couple or so nice actors, get a picture taken with one of them. It was pretty cool.
Are there any particular celebrities or actors that you haven't met but would really like to?
I think there are too many of them, honestly, to count. That I really, I think that are interesting, at least to watch. And there are probably certain ones that I've read up more on, heard or watched interviews with. I mean, there's probably like an endless list of them. So yeah, I can't really say. I don't know if I can say particular names, but yeah. But I feel like there are quite a lot that I would like to meet.
Yeah, honestly, that's fair, because there definitely are a lot of people out there I would like to meet. If I get the chance, a couple examples could be, say, Keanu Reeves or Brendan Fraser.
Ooh, yeah.
But yeah, there are so many. I've definitely met a few, mostly due to conventions or if they happen to be in our home city. But yeah, like you said, there's just so many, it's hard to list them all because just the sheer amount.
Yeah, Kiana and Brendan, they'd probably be cool. They're pretty good actors too. I've seen The Matrix and The Whale. And that would probably be cool.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a couple Brendan Fraser movies. I haven't seen The Whale yet, though, and I honestly really want to, if for no other reason, because it was kind of like the mark of his acting comeback.
Yeah.
Because for a while he was in this slump for reasons we won't get into right now. But so many people really wanted to see him back, and when it seemed like he was, people were in a positive uproar. And then not only did he come back in this movie, he won an award for it.
Oscar for Best Actor, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So he and people like Keanu are very chill people. And of course, a big reason now, aside from all the other ones that I could have listed, that I want to meet Keanu, is because he was the voice, or I guess still is, the voice for Shadow in the Sonic films. And of course, one of my big dreams as a voice actor is to be the voice of Shadow. So seeing somebody who's done it before, which I've done once with Jason Griffith, would be absolutely astounding. But just Keanu Reeves has one of those reputations that just seems like he could do no wrong.
He also voiced Duke Kaboom in Toy Story 4.
He did do that. And I think in Sponge on the Run, while he was technically live action, he was the face on a tumbleweed.
Yeah.
But that's a separate SpongeBob movie.
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know, you think we should wrap this up now?
Yeah, we're only halfway through season 2, so we'll probably cover the other half next week.
Yeah. All right, so that's it for season 2, part 1, and until next time, you guys, stream us on YouTube Music. Tell us your favorite SpongeBob episodes, gags, moments, SpongeBob songs, whatever. And we'll be back next time with the continuation of SpongeBob Season 2 discussion.
Yeah, and since we kind of opened the floodgates at the end, not only do we want to hear what your favorite SpongeBob episode, moments, lines, gags, etc. are, but let us know which famous people you want to meet. Or if you have met them, let us know the story. Like, what was the reason behind it? How did it go? But yeah, we'll be back next week with part 2. And we could technically get through these a lot faster if we really wanted to. But again, this is like the golden age of SpongeBob. So we want to make sure each individual episode gets its moment in the spotlight as we talk about it.
All right, well, until next time, everybody take care.
See you soon.